Welcome everybody, and if you're new to this channel, a special warm welcome to you. I hope you stick around and enjoy this journey of exploration with us. Today is going to be a key component in this debate of what's happening and how do we deal with it, and the subtext to that is around architecture, architectural practice. But the bigger text is around what are we doing with our planet and how do we engage with that relationship between the natural and the built environment going forward. The key to today is this concept of rupture. And I want to speak about the nature of rupture. I want to speak to the history, so we understand it does have a history. Because we often describe our moment as one of transition. Energy transition from fossil to renewables, the digital transition, AI, social transition. But the Prime Minister of Canada's comments, Mark Carney, and I really do want to have a shout-out moment for him, and by implication for the people of Canada, on gifting us this extraordinary statesman. Carney has, in his speeches, most recently the one at Davos, and I highly recommend you go and listen to it. It's not long, but it's really key. He uses the word rupture. And he uses it because he suggests and argues that something more fundamental is happening. And so that's what I want to explore in this talk. Across domains, we are seeing systems behaving in unfamiliar ways. What was once stabilized is now becoming destabilized. Global trade is perhaps the one that is the most visible currently. But I'm going to suggest, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, that our change in what we are seeing professionally, within the profession, is part of this destabilization and change. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is not whether change is occurring, I think that is self-evident, but whether our frameworks for understanding change are still valid. I want to let that rest for a while, because the previous talks I have repeatedly said our system is broken. So I declare my position up front. I do not believe that this is a transition. I believe we are experiencing a rupture, and I very deeply believe that our frameworks are no longer valid. If I can use a metaphor between transition and rupture. A transition assumes the vehicle survives the journey. You can take that very literally. Or you can take it as our institutions, and if you want to get really to the point, you can take it to the Built Environment Council, or the Council for the Built Environment. You can take it to the South African Architectural Council. You can take it to the VAs. You can take it to our profession. A rupture occurs when the vehicle, metaphorically, itself can no longer carry the load. It either becomes too big, Rome, the Roman Empire, becomes too heavy, and it breaks. It ruptures. A transition is linear, it can be managed, and generally institutions remain intact. What we are seeing is quite different. Non-linearity, global trade, tariffs. It's discontinuous, and institutions buckle. treating rupture as a poorly managed transition is how societies compound the problem. Rupture occurs when the weight of change exceeds the capacity of the system designed to carry it. That's where we're at. This is not a structural definition. It is a structural definition, not an emotional definition. There are clear patterns in every rupture. Generally, human capabilities expand. It can be technology, social behavior, morality, a number of issues. However, institutions remain anchored in an older logic. In brackets, architectural practice. The pressure builds in that gap between the two. And a classic example is Eskom. Gets big, the grid and the power generation is located in a single entity that is responsible for the entire country and in some instances beyond. And the system gets so big that it collapses. And the opportunity that has created has been for the democratization of the grid. Previously, Eskom was the sole generator of power. Now, almost every building is a generator of power. Classic rupture behavior. Rupture is also not constant. So it would be wrong to say that history is in a constant state of collapse. It's not. It is in an incremental phase of change constantly. The collapse comes because the rate of that change exceeds the ability of the institutions and the systems to cope with it. So long periods of stability are the norm, but when rupture arrives, it reshapes the terrain permanently. So whereas most change is incremental, so lots of little ones continuously, rupture is episodic, but rupture is decisive. There is no going back. We can track that first rupture to the Neolithic period. For over 200,000 years, humans lived as integrated participants in ecosystems. Agriculture was not a smooth upgrade. It was the first liquefaction of human life, giving us property, hierarchy, and permanence at an enormous cost that we are dealing with today. The illustration is, as far as we know currently, the oldest public architecture in the world, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dating to roughly 9,500 BCE. I will talk extensively about this from an architectural point of view later on, but this is where it happens. This is the moment that we shift from wanderer to settler and change the trajectory of our relationship with the earth for tens of thousands of years. The next rupture is the Westphalian rupture. Has its early roots in the printing press of 1440, when suddenly knowledge becomes democratized. It's no longer held in the hands of the elite. It's no longer held in the hands of the church, the priest. Knowledge is now freely available. We see literacy and capital and collapse of divine authority. It takes a while for Martin Luther then to put his 95 Theses up in 1517, which further begins to break down the authority of the church, and by implication, rulers. And then you get to the 30-Year War, which fundamentally ruptures society, changes the way the world is governed. Perhaps the one that we are most familiar with, industrial rupture, where you shift from steam, it's decoupled from production, it's decoupled from muscle. It's now an enabler of extensive expansion. Feudal institutions could not cope or adapt, and the revolutions of 1848 and the world wars were not failures of progress. They were the price of this institutional lag. Interesting to me that ruptures always look sudden, but only to those who ignored the signals. As they say, the future always arrives early. It simply goes unrecognized. Evidence of what's happening now is extensive in our record. We just ignored it. But what makes the present rupture different is its target. We are not just breaking political or social or economic systems. We are breaking the background conditions, the Holocene stability that made all of this possible in the first place. We have reached planetary limits. So in a sense, we've come full circle. We've come from the inversion of the Neolithic, where then humans attempted to control nature, and we've continued that pattern for thousands of years. Now nature reasserts its control. The system, driven largely by global warming, does its own thing. And that thing is pretty hard on those who are reliant on it. So this is a computer generation image of Miami, in the event of a 2-degree temperature rise. It's important to note that democratization and the growth of human rights are not rupture driven. Okay, they're part of emergence. What they do is that by raising moral expectations, they make institutional failure less tolerable and rupture more likely elsewhere. It raises expectations, that tightens legitimacy, that increases sensitivity, and it increases individual agency. Liquefaction and emergence is frightening because it suspends certainty. If we look at Donald Trump is not the creator of this rupture. He's the exploiter of the background conditions which is leading to the rupture. It's been done before. Hitler did it. History shows that emergence only happens once the canopy clears. Collapse and renewal are not opposites. They are phases. And I'm reminded of Max Ehrmann's poem, A Desiderata. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. This closing insight is really, really important. Everything that I'm going to be discussing from here onward is based on this foundation. The danger is not that systems break. The danger is clinging to systems that no longer carry reality. To our built environment councils, those who have ears, let them hear. Those that have eyes, let them see. Rupture is not the end of the world. It is the end of the illusion that we were ever outside it. In the next talks, I'm going to begin to tighten this examination of rupture and test it against our ability as professionals to deal with it. Thank you for being with us. Please, can I invite you to click the subscription button, to click the like button. It influences where the algorithm places this, and I would really like to expand the viewership to a broader audience so that we can get a full discussion on it. Thank you and take care.